the day I found out my dog had a secret life. So about 2 years ago, I adopted this golden retriever named Milo. Sweetest dog ever. Loves everyone. Typical golden energy. Tail wagging so hard it could knock over a lamp. We live in a quiet neighborhood where a lot of people leave their gates open, and Milo has always been good about staying close to home. I trusted him enough to let him hang out in the front yard sometimes while I worked inside with the window open. One afternoon, I realized it had been a little too quiet for a while. I went outside to call him and he wasn't there. Full panic mode activated. I grabbed his leash and started running up and down the street yelling his name like a crazy person. About 3 houses down, I saw something that made me stop dead in my tracks. Milo was sitting on someone else's porch. And not just sitting. He was lounging like he owned the place. Head up, tongue out, happy as could be. And next to him, an older woman in a rocking chair, feeding him pieces of chicken from a plate. I was like, Milo? The woman looked up and smiled and said, "Oh, you must be Milo's other family." Other family? Turns out, for months, Milo had been slipping away whenever I wasn't looking and visiting this woman, Mrs. Patterson. She lived alone, her kids were grown, and apparently Milo had just decided to adopt her. He'd show up every couple of days, sit politely on her porch, and she'd reward him with chicken, scraps, and the occasional bacon strip. We both laughed about it, and I apologized like 1,000 times for him intruding. But she waved it off and said he was good company. After that, we kind of made it official. Milo had 2 homes. I started bringing Mrs. Patterson groceries once a week, and Milo got to have his second grandma. He still splits his time between us, and honestly, I think he had the right idea. The Mother's Day cookout disaster. This May, I thought it would be a good idea to host a Mother's Day cookout for my family. I planned everything down to the playlist, got all the groceries, and even borrowed a friend's fancy grill. For once, I wanted things to go smoothly. They didn't. It started when my cousin decided to help by turning the grill on high and forgetting about it. The burgers turned into hockey pucks in minutes. While I tried to salvage dinner, my aunt's dog got into the kitchen and ate half the pie I made from scratch. She just looked at me and said, "He has good taste." Then it started raining. Not a drizzle, but full-on thunderstorm. Everyone ran inside with wet plates, muddy shoes, and zero shame. My living room ended up looking like a picnic got into a fight with a swamp. My mom smiled the whole time and said it was perfect. I think she was lying to make me feel better. Next year, I'm booking a restaurant. I knew my son had a secret YouTube channel, so I subscribed without telling him. What I saw changed everything. I'm 42, not exactly a tech-savvy dad, but I keep up. I know what Twitch is, I can operate Discord without setting something on fire, and I know YouTube isn't just cat videos anymore. My son's 17. Quiet kid, keeps to himself. Great student, respectful, but always in his room, editing stuff, talking to his screen when he thinks no one's listening. I knew he was up to something, and I figured it out pretty quickly. He had a YouTube channel. He never told us. He'd switch tabs whenever someone walked in. Got real nervous if we touched his laptop. Typical teenage secrecy, I thought. So one day while dropping him off for coaching, I noticed a tab open just for a second. The channel name, Nexus Talks, didn't say anything, just noted it. Later that night, I looked it up on my phone. 37K subscribers. My son was low-key internet famous. But that wasn't even the wild part. The videos? They weren't gaming or cringe memes. They were these raw, deep commentary clips about school pressure, friendships, loneliness, being misunderstood, about growing up feeling invisible even in your own home. It hit me hard. He was funny, articulate, real. And yeah, he talked about us. Nothing disrespectful, but honest. My parents are good people. They care. But they don't always get me. I don't know if they'd support this channel if they knew. Maybe they'd laugh. Maybe they'd tell me to focus on real stuff. I didn't sleep much that night, because the truth is, I hadn't really seen him in a while. I've been so focused on work, bills, routine, I forgot to check in on who he was becoming. So I subscribed, liked every video, left one anonymous comment under a vid titled, "Why I'm Afraid to Be Myself at Home. Any parent would be proud of you. Never stop being you." He didn't reply, but the next day he walked into the living room and sat beside me. No phone, no distractions, just sat, then said, "Hey, if I wanted to show you something I've been working on, would that be okay?" I nodded. He smiled a little, like something heavy had finally lifted. And that's how I found out about my son's YouTube channel. Not by spying, not by confronting, but by listening. You're not gonna believe what just happened. So, I borrowed my cousin's old iPad to binge some Netflix while mine was charging. No big deal. I opened Safari by accident and boom, his email was still logged in. But that's not even the wild part. What is the wild part? An email notification popped up with the subject line, "Your sugar baby application has been accepted." I stared at it like, huh? Sugar, baby, application. My brain completely froze. Naturally, I clicked it. Don't judge me, I was nosy. And guess what I found? A full-blown profile. Picture, bio, wishlist, preferences, everything. He used a fake name, sure, but it was literally his face. Like, full-on selfie from our bathroom. Now I'm thinking maybe it's some kind of prank. But then I scrolled and saw receipts. Real payments. This man has been sending money to someone named Princess Star 17. I sat there like, are we in a Netflix original right now? So I confronted him. I said, "Yo, you got something to tell me?" And he just laughs. Not even nervous laughter. He was chilling. Then he says, "You weren't supposed to see that. It's part of a project." Project. He said he's writing a screenplay about sugar baby culture and decided to go method. Like deep undercover. All in the name of research. But here's where it completely unraveled. I looked up Princess Star 17. She's real. And she's been to our house. He introduced her to our family as his study buddy. I couldn't even speak. So now I'm stuck. Is he lying and living a whole secret life? Or is this really just a super elaborate writing project? Because right now it feels like both. And I seriously don't know what's real anymore. I left my stable job to care for my mom, and now people think I wasted my potential. I, 28F, made a decision that changed the course of my life, and not everyone understands why. I had a steady job at a well-known company, good benefits, and a clear career path ahead. I was doing well, and everyone expected me to keep climbing the ladder. Then my mom got seriously ill. She needed constant care and support, and my family didn't have anyone else who could step in. After a lot of thinking, I decided to quit my job to become her full-time caregiver. It was one of the hardest choices I ever made because I knew it meant putting my career on hold indefinitely. Since then, some friends and family have been very supportive, but others have expressed disappointment or even judgment. They say I'm throwing away my potential and wasting my youth. Some even suggest I could have hired professional help or sent her to a care facility instead. I didn't make this decision lightly. Being there for my mom feels like the right thing to do, even if it means sacrificing my professional goals. It's not easy, and I often feel isolated and unsure about my future. I wonder if people see me as weak or foolish, but I know deep down that family is more important to me than any job title. Still, it hurts when others don't understand or judge my choice. Am I wrong for prioritizing my mom's care over my career? Or is this just one of those things that only someone in my position can truly understand? Strange encounter as a kid. I want to keep this short and simple. The only reason I'm sharing this is because it recently came to mind again after listening to UFO podcasts. You can believe me or not, but this is not fiction. Summer of 2009. I was in summer school and it was a late weekend night. At the time, my mom would have Bible sessions with her friends, and afterward they'd watch movies or whatever. This particular night, they were stargazing, and I woke up and found everyone outside. Everything was fine until we saw a star brighter than every other star in the sky. It kept getting brighter and brighter until my family and I realized it wasn't getting brighter, it was getting closer. Without even being able to think, it was so close that we could make out what we saw as giant discs. slowly hovered above our house, making this strange engine sound that I've never heard from any ordinary planes flying in the sky. I guess for what it's worth, I'd been on many flights prior to that, so I know what a regular airplane sounds like. The sound was very unsettling. And what made the scene even creepier was our porch light never worked our entire time living there at that point. But that night, it worked perfectly. I'm not gonna say it was flat out aliens, but I saw multiple silhouettes looking back at us from inside of that thing. For about a week after that night, I could still hear the engine of that ship as if it were following me. I could have just been paranoid, but I've never seen anything that crazy ever since. Extremely weird first experience at church. I generally don't know if I'm going crazy or something, but I had a weird experience. I'm not religious, went to church first time last Sunday simply just cause and wanted to see what it was about. I'm more of a believer of science etc, but I was just curious. I went to my local church at noon and just sat at the back. There was the priest, me, and maybe like 15 other people. For context of the story, my sister passed away 4 years ago because of a car accident. The priest was talking about a bunch of prayers and quotes from the Bible, I guess, because I had no clue what he was saying. I never read the Bible, as you can tell. The service is about 1 hour long, in which somebody else told me. Maybe like halfway and I got bored because I had no clue what this guy was saying and didn't know why I came in the first place. But this is when something weird happened. Like I said, I'm sitting in the back and the next person is 3 rows in front of me. As soon as I tried to get up, it felt like someone kicked TF out of me. Like on the side of leg. Not like a little tap that shit hurt. I don't have any problems with my legs. I was so distraught and thought I was going crazy. Maybe 2 minutes later, the priest started talking about loved ones and certain Bible quotes, which again, what section they were or what they meant. It felt really odd and weird. I'm probably gonna go again to see if it happens. Or maybe I'm crazy. Edit, to make it more clear about the leg. It felt like I got a dead leg, just like when you get tackled hard in football. I played football, so I'm comparing it to that, and I did have a bruise or anything. How to deal with new GF's angry dad. So I recently started dating my GF only about 2 months ago. Known her for about a year in general. Met in college. She asked me to meet her parents, which is an obvious thing to do, so I went over for dinner 2 nights ago. Wasn't the best experience, but let me explain. Her dad was playing like the role in movies where dude seems pissed his grown daughter now has a boyfriend and giving me constant death stares. I asked her when we were alone for a second if she had toxic exes so I could connect the dots, but she said no, so what this guy's problem was. I introduced myself and was being respectful as possible, obviously, because it's his house and I'm meeting them for first time. Her mother is a saint BTW. Anyways, so this was going on for 3.5 hours because I was chilling with her after we ate dinner. And then her and her mother walked away for a second and he snapped his head at me and I got annoyed. I said, "Do you not like me or something?" He looked like shocked when I said that and he said, "I'll know in a couple weeks." Like, bro, I get it's your daughter, but damn. Not like I just met her, you know. And she told me that she already mentioned me since we started dating. By the way, if you do comment, don't recommend leaving her because I'm obviously not, but I just wanted to rant because I thought it was mad annoying. My childhood friend and I are sailing around the Caribbean. I 26M met my now girlfriend, Eve 25F, when we were kids. We grew up on the coast and were raised around boats and the ocean. Ever since Eve was a kid, she always dreamed of sailing long distance. As we went through high school, I started getting more into sailing. Eve's grandpa had a small boat that he would take us out on and teach us the ropes. In our senior year of high school, we decided to buy a boat with the goal of living on it full time. Eve's parents were supportive. Mine weren't at first, but they eventually came around. We went to college and both got degrees in marine engineering. We worked through college, pooling our money and shopping around for boats. In our third year, we found an old 40-foot schooner in need of restoration. It was far larger and considerably more expensive than we wanted, but it was hard to pass up. We bought it and began restoring it. Our family helped with some of the big things like repainting and replacing deck boards. We completely remodeled the interior and installed a new engine and all new rigging. We dubbed our boat the Puffin because Eve finds puffins adorable. We set her up for extended living, installing solar panels and desalination equipment. 2 months after we graduated college, we set off from South Florida and sailed in the Bahamas for 3 months, then stopped over in Puerto Rico and sailed through the Antilles. We've now been sailing together for 2 years next week. We periodically make stops back home to see family. We've went as far south as Panama and sailed up the coast of Mexico in the winter. The furthest trip we made was recently to Bermuda. I'm not inclined to do that again. It was arduous and bad weather plagued us the whole way. This is the happiest I've ever been. It's an amazing experience getting to see all these places for the first time and spending time with Eve. We started officially dating a few months after we set sail. My friend sold everything and moved to Colombia to build dirt bike trails for the cartel. This is crazy as it sounds. So basically, I had who we will just call Jeff. Well, Jeff was in his mid-20s and had been working in the auto detailing, car cleaning industry all his adult life. At some point, he decided to start his own company, but instead of properly running the business, he just preferred to smoke flower and ride his dirt bike all the time. So he would clean a few cars, get a bit of cash, and then enjoy the rest of his week. I should also mention that the shop he was renting was also his home. Well, this went on for about a year or so, before he had basically gotten himself into K+ of debt, was 3 months behind on rent, and the situation looked absolutely bleak. So one day while stoned and riding his dirt bike, a friend gave him the idea that he could move to Colombia where everything is cheap, and somehow Nick came to the conclusion he could build dirt bike trails for the cartel. And his friend, who was on some trust me bro, said, "Yeah, my brother lives in Colombia, they would definitely be cool with that." So thus began his 3-month process of selling all his belongings, his car, all his electronics, and yes, even his beloved dirt bike. Now you may be wondering, did anyone try to stop him? Yes, of course. Everyone he told this plan to told him that was a horrible idea, and I even said, the cartel has submarines, why in the world would they need dirt bike trails? For fun. Isn't there multiple civil wars going on in Colombia? Isn't it extremely dangerous? Yeah, but that's why I'm linking up with my cartel hermanos. In that 3 months' time trying to sell everything, people told him time and time again to reconsider, to go somewhere else like Thailand, Cuba, hell, anywhere that wasn't Colombia. Mind you, during these 3 months, since he had been kicked out of his shop/home, he was living in another friend's shop who let him stay there while they tried to convince him otherwise. Also, mind you, in that time, he never took the time to learn Spanish. I think between the stress, debt, and too much pot, he just got sick of it all and saw it as his only escape, to the point of quixotic delusion. He really thought his new life was going to be ripping dirt bikes with the cartel. Well, Jeff did eventually sell everything, and I remember going with some other friends to drop him off at the airport. He went there with $7 grand and a dream. But shortly after making it there, he was soft scammed by a taxi driver, and reality started settling in. The taxi driver didn't rob him, but took him to a hotel ran by his girlfriend, who charged 3x what a normal accommodation would be there. Charged him 3x cab fare, including driving him 3 hours from Bogota to check out a dirt bike, and eventually he sold Jeff a dirt bike for twice what it was worth. By the end of a few weeks, he was down to his last, and waiting for his bike to be registered. I should mention, in the time he was actually staying there and realizing the situation, reality set in that he was not going to be hanging with the cartel, much less building trails for them. So he decided to instead take his bike, buy a tent, and camp around the countryside. The real kicker is, as he was waiting for his new bike to be registered, the hotel turned around and charged him in hidden fees which he legally had to pay, so all his luggage was held hostage there, and I think he was almost held hostage. Basically, he said, "When I tried to leave, they wouldn't let me take my stuff, so I went and got the bike, and was driving around. Then Fernando, the taxi driver, called me and told me to swing by to sort it out. But the thing is, I had been staying here for weeks, and the lights were always on outside. This time it was completely dark, and Fernando and a man in all black I had never seen before were waiting outside for me. So Jeff did the logical thing and called the police, who very clearly understood the scam, but couldn't help him since the hotel had invoices for the extra charges. They almost left him there with them too. Police: "Sir, they are offering to let you stay here another night free while you sort things out with them." Jeff: "Officer, are you insane? I don't think that's safe." Police: "Okay. They are saying they can call you a taxi." Jeff: "Who's calling me a taxi?" Police: "The man in black over there." Jeff: "Please don't leave me here with these people." Well, after practically begging for his life to the police, they escorted him to another hotel in safe area, which are up nearly the rest of his cash, but at least bought him his life. After that, he started making plans to come home, and I heard from friends he was buying a plane ticket, but then he went cold. Never heard from again, deactivated his Facebook, and never contacted anyone again. Now you would think, they got him. I thought the same thing, but about a month ago he uploaded a video to his YouTube channel where he would post his dirt bike adventures. Small little 100-follower channel, where he was basically riding around Bogota on the bike he bought from the hotel people, and it was clearly him. But no one has officially heard from him. My guess is, he came back home and decided to start a new life and went dark on everyone. He stayed in Colombia and is living out his dream. I don't think the taxi driver / man in black got him, as far as I can judge from the video. But hey, if you're out there, Jeff, get a hold of us. Dog days of summer. The summer I turned 17 was the loneliest stretch of time I'd ever known. My best friend, Gabe, moved to Colorado in June. My other friends, scratch that, acquaintances, spent their days at soccer camps, on family vacations, or posting photos I wasn't tagged in. I hadn't planned for solitude. I hadn't prepared to become a ghost in my own neighborhood. My name's Mason, and that summer I learned what silence really sounds like. Not the peaceful kind, like when you're watching the stars, but the heavy, itchy kind that settles on your shoulders and makes you feel invisible. By July, I'd run through every movie in my watch list, beat every level in my games, and exhausted the excitement of scrolling through social media pretending not to care. The days were slow and blistering, true dog days. The kind where the heat feels personal, like it's trying to melt you down into nothing. One morning, I stood at my bedroom window and stared out at the empty cul-de-sac, thinking about how pathetic it felt to be 17 and grounded by boredom rather than bad behavior. That's when it hit me. If the world was going to leave me behind, maybe I could build a new one. I started small sketches in an old spiral notebook. A town I called Brimwood, population, whoever I imagined. It was a desert town, halfway buried in sand, with crooked telephone poles and strange little stores that only opened when the sun hit them just right. I drew characters: a lizard-headed gas station clerk named Roscoe, a teenage girl who could talk to ghosts through vending machines, and a retired time traveler who wore Hawaiian shirts and spoke only in riddles. First, it felt silly, juvenile. I kept waiting for the embarrassment to hit, but it never did. Something in me stirred awake instead. I'd forgotten how much I loved imagining things just to see where they'd go. I turned the backyard into a set. Cardboard boxes became storefronts. I duct-taped goggles to my cat's head and made him the reluctant sheriff of Brimwood. I started talking to myself, well, technically to my characters. I filled a voice recorder with monologues and fake radio broadcasts. And here's the strange thing. I wasn't bored anymore. Each morning, I woke up with a mission: to build, to write, to record. I even started filming short scenes on my phone. I used an old tripod and edited clips on free software I found online. No one told me what to do, and no one told me I was doing it wrong. For the first time, that freedom didn't scare me. It thrilled me. My parents thought I was going off the deep end. My mom asked if I missed Gabe. My dad told me I should get a job. I told them I was building something. Building what? They asked. A world, I said. By mid-August, Brimwood had become more than a distraction. It became a part of me. And maybe I sound dramatic, but when your days feel empty, creating something is like digging a well in the desert. One evening, I uploaded a short video I made to YouTube. Just 5 minutes long. Welcome to Brimwood. I figured no one would watch it, but someone did. Then a few more. Someone commented, "This is weird and cool." Another wrote, "Do more." That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling fan and smiled. I hadn't smiled for no reason in a while. In the final week of summer, I made one last video. The story of how Brimwood was founded. By a lonely teen in a heat wave, who built a town from cardboard, dust, and dreams. It was a little meta, but I liked that. School started again in early September. I walked into senior year not exactly popular, but different, confident. Gabe called from Colorado. Saw your videos, he said. Dude, they're insane. I loved Roscoe. And suddenly I didn't feel so far away from him. Or from anyone, really. A girl from my English class asked if I'd help her film a short story she wrote. Another guy asked where I got the sound effects for my Brimwood videos. I realized something then. Summer didn't have to be a waiting room. Could be a workshop, a lab, a place to rediscover parts of yourself you'd forgotten in the noise of school halls and lunch tables. The dog days were real. They were long and hot and hard, but they weren't wasted, because somewhere in that stillness, I found my voice, and I named it Brimwood. That one time my friend asked me for gas money, so I gave him a nickel. This story takes place during my senior year of high school. My friend Greg, who lives in the same neighborhood as me, like 3 streets over, was hosting a LAN party for his birthday. So everyone was encouraged to bring their rigs over and we could play games, eat Little Caesars, and drink Mountain Dew to our heart's content all night. At the time, I did not have my own car. I was waiting to turn 18 to get my license to avoid the extra driving classes. This meant I would have to carry my rig and monitor as well as all the cables a few blocks to Greg's house. Not the worst thing in the world, but still a bit of a pain in the ass. With this daunting task staring me in the face, I decided to instead hit up another friend attending the LAN party, John, for a ride. John lived across town, had a car, and would be driving past my house on the way to Greg's anyway. A perfect solution to my huge problem. The text exchange went something like this. Me, yo, any chance you'd be down to pick me up on your way to Greg's? It would really help me getting all my stuff moved. John, yeah man, that's fine. I remember where you live. However, you need to pitch in for gas. Me, sure dude. I can give you a nickel. A little while later John shows up. I load my stuff up, flip him the coin, and we drive the 0.3 miles over to Greg's, and he realizes why I only offered him a nickel. We both had a good laugh and went on to have a good time at the party. I plagiarized my high school paper, got an A+, and my teacher still praises it years later. I don't really know why I'm writing this, maybe just to get it off my chest. It happened over a decade ago, but it still lingers in my mind. I was in my final year of high school. We had this massive term paper to write for English class, one of those this counts for 30% of your final grade kind of papers. The topic was something like the evolution of the tragic hero in literature, and we had 3 weeks to do it. But I didn't. I procrastinated. I lied to myself every day. I'll start tomorrow. I work better under pressure, etc. The night before it was due, I panicked. No outline, no notes, nothing. Just a vague idea that I wanted to write about Hamlet and Jay Gatsby. So I did what I told myself I'd never do. I went online, found an old paper on some obscure academic archive, and copied about 85% of it. I changed a few words here and there, rearranged some paragraphs, added an original intro and conclusion. That's it. The next week, we got our grades back. Plus, not just that, the teacher actually read parts of it out loud to the class, saying it was brilliantly structured and insightful beyond its years. I remember just sitting there, frozen. It didn't feel good. Felt like I had cheated at something sacred. Here's the thing, she kept it. She used it as a model paper for her future classes. A couple years later, when I came back to visit the school, she still remembered me as one of the best writers she ever had. She even told my younger cousin that writing must run in the family. I've since gone on to write my own work in college and professionally too, no more cheating. But that one paper still haunts me. Not because I got away with it, but because I wonder what it would have felt like to earn that praise for something I actually wrote. Sometimes I think about rewriting it from scratch, just to prove to myself that I can. But deep down, I know I already proved that. Just not that day. I lost my wife, my home, and my peace, but reconnected with the only person who ever truly loved me. When I was 7, I met this girl at a local park. She was getting picked on by some older boys, and for some reason, my feet just moved before my brain did. I stepped in, shooed the boys off, and she looked at me like I was some kind of superhero. We were in the same class at school, and from that day on, we were inseparable. We did everything together. People used to say we were like two puzzle pieces, always side by side, always clicking. She went through some girl struggles in middle and high school. Period pains, cramps, bad days, and I tried my best to help her out. Held her backpack, got her pain meds from the nurse's office, gave her space when she needed it, listened when she just needed someone to rant to. I never saw it as a big deal. That was just what you do for someone you care about. We even tried dating once in high school. We held hands, went on a couple of awkward teen dates, but it never felt romantic. It was like trying to kiss your own shadow. We talked about it and agreed. We were best friends and we weren't meant to be lovers. So we went back to just being us. Then came college. That's where I met her, my future wife. She was magnetic, confident, bright, the kind of girl that walked into a room and somehow the temperature changed. We hit it off almost instantly, and yeah, I'll admit it, I was infatuated. My best friend was happy for me, genuinely happy. She supported me through it, even helped me plan out some of our early dates. After graduation, my girlfriend and I decided to take a gap year to travel before settling down. We wanted to see the world, find a place that felt like home, and just be young. In all that movement, I lost touch with my best friend. There was no big falling out or dramatic goodbye, just distance, time, and two people drifting apart. One night, staying at a resort by the sea, my girlfriend and I had what I can only describe as the most intimate, intense night we ever shared. It was perfect. 9 months later, we had twins, a boy and a girl. We got married soon after. The twins were the light of my life. They were so pure. They held hands wherever they went. They whispered secrets to each other. They were shy and sweet and always looking out for one another. Even at age 3, just watching them made me believe in goodness. But behind the scenes, my wife had changed. She was increasingly absent, physically and emotionally. Most of the parenting fell on me. I was exhausted, but I loved my kids too much to complain. I figured she'd come around eventually. Then one night, I found out she'd been cheating on me. I don't know how long it had been going on, but when I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She said she was bored and wanted passion back in her life. I filed for divorce the next morning. I won full custody of the kids. She didn't even fight for them. I flew back home with my kids and found a modest apartment. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and I was trying my best to hold it all together. Then one day, while walking to pick up some groceries, I saw a figure sitting on the sidewalk near a closed shop. A girl, with a dog by her side. Our eyes met. I froze. She froze. It was her, my best friend. The one person I never got closure with. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I walked over, called her name. She stood up slowly. We didn't even say anything, we just hugged. Like time folded in on itself. I brought her home with me. The kids were playing with her dog, giggling. Meanwhile, I sat with her, and she told me everything. After I left for college, she fell in love with someone else. They were excited to start a life together, and when she got pregnant, they were over the moon. They even adopted the dog together, saying it'd be the kids' protector. But just 2 days before I found her, she'd had a miscarriage, and the man who was supposed to love her blamed her for it, said disgusting things about her body, told her he couldn't be with her anymore. Then he kicked her out with the dog, and she had nowhere to go. I just hugged her again, and we both cried. Then something happened I'll never forget. While we sat there, the twins came up to us. My son hugged my leg. My daughter hugged hers. And then she looked up at her and said, "Can you be our new mommy? So the dog can live with us too?" She gasped. I felt like I got struck by lightning. The look in her eyes, it wasn't just surprise. It was that feeling. The feeling we never had when we dated, the one we should have had. The one we didn't understand until that moment. She smiled through her tears. I looked at her, and we just knew. We started dating. It wasn't long before we got engaged, and then married. The kids finally had a mother who read to them at night, kissed their scraped knees, and told them she loved them every single day. We adopted more pets, a couple of of rabbits, a lazy cat. Our house is chaos, but it's warm, it's full of love, and it's ours. Then one day I got a call. It was my ex-wife. She said she was sick. She had contracted an STD from one of her partners and was in and out of the hospital. She asked if she could talk to the kids. I told her, I have a new wife, and my kids have a new mom. One that actually loves them. One that tucks them in at night and holds them when they cry. I hope you find peace, but we're doing just fine without you. And I hung up. Today marks 8 years since that night my childhood friend walked back into my life. And now, everything I ever dreamed of, I have it. We built a big wooden house on a hill just outside town, surrounded by green and sunlight and laughter. I even have an army of pets now, dogs, cats, rabbits, you name it. This morning, I took the twins to the same park I used to visit as a kid, and I just stood there watching. That's how we met. Life, it really does come full circle. 5 stars, no survivors. Started with a ping. I was parked outside a 7-Eleven off Route 43, sipping cold coffee and waiting for a ride request. The icon popped up, pickup, Clayton Ridge, 1.2 miles. No profile photo, no rating, just a blank, gray avatar. Weird, but not unheard of. I tapped accept and drove. The road narrowed, houses fell away, and soon I was idling in front of a dense patch of woods. That's when I saw him, tall, wiry, wearing an old leather butcher's apron stained a deep, flaking maroon. He climbed in, dragging a duffel bag that clinked like steel and bones. Where to? I asked. He didn't speak, just entered an address on my app. 70 miles away. As I drove, he hummed tunelessly, and I swore I heard something move in the bag. I cracked the window. He didn't seem to notice or care. I dropped him off at a boarded-up farmhouse around 2 a.m. As he got out, he turned to me and spoke for the first time. You're reliable, he said. You'll be hearing from others. I laughed it off, drove home, told myself it was just some weirdo with a fetish for bad vibes. But then came another ping. No photo, no rating. Pickup, Elmwood Cemetery, 3:33 a.m. I should have declined. Should have thrown my phone out the window and gone to sleep. But I didn't. The next one was a woman, pale as wax, blood on her cheek, dragging a suitcase that left a red smear along my back seat. She smelled like bleach and old iron. You don't ask questions, right? She asked, eyes darting like a rabbit's. Nope, I muttered. Good, drive. That was the night I became a rideshare driver for serial killers. They called themselves the Flock, or at least, that's what one of them whispered through cracked lips, chewing on a toothpick made from a finger bone. They weren't a cult, not exactly, just connected, a network. They found each other online, dark web maybe, or something older. My app stopped behaving like it used to. No updates, no ads, just job after job, ping after ping. Every pickup more unsettling than the last. One guy wore a pig mask and kept laughing like a child. Another woman carried a taxidermied fox that she talked to like it was her son. Once, I dropped a man off at a lake just before dawn. He walked in wearing bricks on his feet, waving goodbye without ever turning around. They tipped well, in cash, crisp bills that smelled like copper and ash. Eventually, I tried uninstalling the app. My screen went black. When it came back, it was already routing me to my next pickup. That's when I realized I wasn't driving them. I was part of it. The car was mine, but the road belonged to them. Every mile I drove, I was sinking deeper into something I couldn't escape. One night, I broke. I picked up a kid, barely 16, sweaty, wide-eyed, hands trembling. He smelled like gasoline. He said nothing, just handed me an envelope. Inside, a Polaroid of a man tied to a chair, mouth sewn shut, and an address. Drop this at the warehouse, the kid said. Then burn it. I'm not doing this anymore, I snapped. He looked at me like I just said gravity wasn't real. You don't get to quit. You think you're just the driver? You're the thread. Without you, the flock unravels. I kicked him out, drove straight home, parked the car, deleted the app, changed phones, changed cars, moved cities. It didn't matter. The new car locked itself one night while I was driving. The dashboard lit up with a familiar ping. Pickup, 666 Ashmere Lane. I hadn't given that address. I hadn't even opened the new phone. And still, it found me. The worst part? I started to recognize them. Not just the killers, the victims. People who smiled at me in coffee shops. A barista who made my drink. A teacher from the elementary school. Once, I picked up a woman who'd been laughing with her friends 5 minutes earlier and dropped her off in pieces behind a meatpacking plant. Last week, I drove a man with no eyes. His sockets dripped salt water, and the air around him buzzed like radio static. He said he was looking for the shepherd. Who? I asked. You'll know, he replied, when he gets in your back seat and asks if you're ready for the final ride. Tonight, my phone pinged again. Only this time, the pickup address was my house. I stared out the window, heart hammering. There he stood, lean, tall, eyes like empty tunnels, wearing a black driver's cap. In his hand was an old, rusted key. He smiled and pointed to my car. It's your turn. I backed away from the window. The man outside didn't knock. He didn't need to. My phone buzzed with a new notification. Passenger waiting. TA now. Final ride. The screen pulsed with red light. I grabbed my keys, but they weren't there. The rusted key in his hand? That was mine now. A low hum began to build, not outside, but in my head, like a distant choir of insects screaming in unison. My car door creaked open by itself, though I hadn't unlocked it. The dome light glowed a sickly green. I should have run. I wanted to run, but my legs moved on their own. I climbed into the driver's seat like a sleepwalker. The man slid into the back, silent as a grave. He was no longer smiling. His face was blank, not neutral, absent, like a mask someone forgot to animate. The engine turned over, though I never touched the ignition. Drive, he whispered. To where? I asked, but my voice sounded far away, like it was coming from underwater. He didn't respond, but the GPS lit up on its own. Final destination, 0 miles. Arriving now. The road warped. The streetlights bent backward. Time slowed. We weren't driving anymore. We were descending. My surroundings peeled away like old wallpaper. Suburbia giving way to black fields stitched with bone. A moonless sky loomed above. Breathing. Yes, breathing. With every exhale, the air got colder. The clouds formed screaming faces that watched the car pass like mourners at a funeral no one was invited to. Then came the pit. It wasn't a location. It was a hole in reality. A chasm where the GPS screamed, recalculating over and over until it burst into static. The car hovered on the edge. You've earned this, the man in the back said. Your seat in the flock is reserved. He held out a mirror. It wasn't my reflection I saw, it was all the rides. Every victim, every killer, every bag of meat dragged into the woods. I saw myself watching it all, dead-eyed, complicit, passenger in my own life. I didn't kill them, I muttered. You drove the blade. My hands started to decay, skin blackening, nails peeling. Every mile I'd driven, every act of silence was catching up. But then something cracked. It wasn't the world. It was me. No, I said. Not a whisper this time. A roar. You want a driver? Drive yourself. I jerked the wheel hard and flung the car into reverse. Tires screeched. Flames licked the edges of the pit as the nose of the car lifted away from it. The shepherd screamed. His voice not human, but thousands layered atop one another, like a graveyard shrieking. I didn't look back. The road reformed beneath us, but not neatly. It was wild, chaotic, paved with shattered bones and shattered choices. I sped through it anyway, the speedometer spinning wildly. The shepherd clawed at the back seat, trying to reach me. His hands burst into worms. His mouth split into 3, all of them chanting something in reverse. But the mirror he held? I grabbed it, slammed it into the dashboard. It shattered, and with it, so did he. The back seat erupted in black smoke. 1,000 shadows fled into the night, moaning like condemned souls. The car swerved, hit something, then silence. When I woke up, I was in a cornfield. No road, no shepherd, just stalks and silence. The app was gone from my phone. Completely. Not deleted, erased. Like it had never existed. I limped home. My car was totaled. The windows had claw marks. The back seat reeked of sulfur. But I was free. It took months to sleep again. The news reported a drop in missing persons cases in my area. One detective theorized a trafficker had been killed. They didn't find any suspects or bodies, but I knew. One night, I got a letter in my mailbox. No stamp. Just a torn piece of newspaper folded inside. On it, a review. 5 stars. Smooth ride. Good music. Shame he broke the rules. But even the flock sheds dead feathers. I moved. Again. Burned everything from that part of my life. Took a job at a mechanic shop. No phones. No apps. But sometimes late at night I still hear that ping. And once, in my rearview mirror, I saw a man in a leather apron standing at the edge of a field. He didn't wave. He just watched. Still, I smile, because I made a choice. I turned around. I shattered the mirror. I looked evil in the face and reversed. They might still be out there. The flock, the shepherd, waiting for a new driver. But it won't be me. Not anymore. Not ever again. He's always been romantic, but today he took it to another level. I, 27F, picked my boyfriend, 23M, up this afternoon after his shift. He works construction. So the first thing he did when we got home was hop in the shower. Nothing out of the ordinary until everything else about the day unfolded like a scene from a movie. We headed to a nearby park just to walk and unwind. There's an aquarium on the park grounds, so we stopped in, wandered around like 2 kids on a field trip, and laughed at the weird-looking fish. After that, we grabbed dinner at a cozy little restaurant nearby, one of those places that smells like garlic and warm bread the second you walk in. As the sun started to set, we found a quiet spot in the park and just sat there together, watching the sky turn gold and pink. It was one of those rare moments where time kind of slows down and everything feels right. He's always been romantic, but lately, something's shifted. He's been putting in even more effort. And today felt extra special. Now we're home, curled up on the couch with a movie on. No lights, just candlelight flickering around the room. So simple, but so us. I'm completely blissed out. Update, he proposed. And yes, I said yes. DW and Arthur invite Momin to a picnic at a gas station. The Texas sun beat down on the cracked asphalt of the Tom Thumb Fuel Center in Allen. DW adjusted her polka dot sun hat, gazing with a mixture of amusement and slight bewilderment at Arthur's lifted pickup truck. "Are you sure about this, Arthur?" she asked, her voice laced with doubt. "A picnic? At a gas station?" Arthur, ever the pragmatist, shrugged. "Where else are we gonna go? Caitlin's brisket sandwiches are calling my name, and this truck bed's got a built-in table, practically." He shot a sidelong glance at Momin, who stood quietly beside him. "Besides," he added with a mischievous grin, "it's all about conformity, right, Momin? We gotta fit in." Momin, usually the jovial one, just sighed. He'd learned that arguing with Arthur was like wrestling a greased pig. "Yeah, Arthur, conformity. That's exactly what I was thinking," he mumbled, his head drooping. And so, they found themselves parked at pump number 7, a bright yellow 7 gleaming in the sun. Arthur, fueled by some inner rebellious spirit disguised as a lesson in sociology, stormed inside. "I need to fill her up," he barked at Jack, the young, slightly bewildered clerk behind the kiosk. "How much, sir?" Jack asked politely. Arthur scowled. "Just fill her up. What's the matter with you, kid? You new here?" He proceeded to rattle off a number, paid with a huff, and stomped back to the truck. Ignoring the mini-drama, DW opened the picnic basket. The aroma of Caitlin's barbecue brisket filled the air, momentarily eclipsing the smell of gasoline. "Okay, let's eat," she announced, trying to inject some normalcy into the situation. They sat perched on the tailgate, tearing into the sandwiches. The juicy brisket dripped down their chins, a stark contrast to the surrounding concrete and the hum of passing cars. Arthur, mid-chew, nudged Momin with his elbow. Hey, speaking of conformity, you know what you should do? Wear a suit and tie next time you go grocery shopping. Really own the whole Texas bougie thing. DW chuckled. It's like people who dress up to go to Whataburger in Dallas after a wedding. It's a cultural phenomenon. Arthur nodded sagely. Exactly. Cultural. Now you get it. It's all about the performance. He paused, chewing thoughtfully. You know, I think you'd understand it better if you hadn't spent so much time in Houston. DW's eyebrows shot up. Houston has its own eccentricities, she said diplomatically. She knew what Arthur meant, though. This particular brand of performative conformity, of trying too hard to fit into a perceived ideal, felt foreign. Momin, finally finding his voice, chimed in. You know, if we moved to Los Angeles, we could probably act normally. Arthur's eyes lit up. You're right, Momin. LA has more normalcy and less of this stuff. Caitlin even said she didn't have to behave stuck up in Beverly Hills, Momin added.
Plus, Laïs wonderful.
And mayonnaise gas. He finished lamely, clearly lost in thought. DW shook her head, trying to suppress a laugh. Mayonnaise gas? I think you need a little less Texas conformity and a little more sleep, Momin. As they finished their sandwiches, the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Jack, from inside the kiosk, was now sweeping the floor with a weary expression. DW sighed contentedly. You know what? Despite the unusual location, this has been a nice picnic. Arthur, ever the contrarian, nodded. Yeah, it was. Mostly because it proves my point about conformity. He paused, a sly grin spreading across his face. And because Caitlin makes a mean brisket sandwich. Later that evening, DW sat at her computer, remembering her grocery shopping trip and thinking about Arthur's point about conformity. So she decided to leave a review. Had such a great experience at Tom Thumb thanks to Thomas at checkout. He was incredibly friendly, professional, and efficient. His positive attitude made my shopping trip even better, and he went above and beyond to ensure everything was smooth. It's rare to find such excellent customer service these days, but Thomas truly stands out. I'll definitely be looking for his lane next time I shop. Keep up the great work, Thomas. Then, she thought about her experience at UTD and wrote, My experience at UTD has been friendly and very academic. The school focuses on helping you achieve your goals by giving you many resources as they want to. She added to her ever-growing document, Pigs and Animals. My dad went to prison for killing the man who shot his dog. I knew my dad went to prison but never knew exactly what for since the family was hush-hush about it. He passed away last year and recently my mom shared the story of what happened. Back in 1985, my dad lived with my grandpa on his ranch. He had a border collie named Richie. Richie would roam free on the ranch and crossed under the fence into the neighbor's property one day. The neighbor shot the dog and Richie ran home bleeding. After taking her to the vet, she survived. My dad confronted the neighbor that confirmed he shot her and taunted my dad. In response, my dad went home and came back with a shotgun and killed the neighbor when he opened his door. He drove to the police station and turned himself in after. He received 14 years but got out after 5. He never spoke a word about it to me. This all happened before I was born. I don't know where else to share, so here we are. Voicemails from an unknown number. One rainy day in August, a certain teacher got a call from an unknown number. This person, who would later come to be known as Sam Balting, sat in the jail phone area, hearing the phone ring once, then twice, and then again and again and again until it beeped to voicemail. She left a voicemail. She started yelling about how the person was not there when she broke out, and how the person must hate her. She didn't know she had the wrong number. The teacher sat with her AirPods in, waiting for the bus, with the rhythmic tapping of the rain on the awning. She clicked on the voicemail and listened. The second voicemail came a few weeks later. A sunny day. The birds were out. This time, the call came from a different number, but it was unmistakably her in the voicemail that followed. Sam called the number she knew was his. When the call rang and rang and rang and beeped the loud pang of voicemail, she sighed. She told the phone that she had escaped jail again. She said that she was waiting for him. She was in Plover. The teacher got this voicemail when she was on her couch. The third voicemail came a few hours later. If it was the same phone number, obviously the same payphone. Sam did not get the voice of the man she was trying to reach. She instead got the beep that she had started to call the beep of rejection. She tried to tell him that if he did not get there in the next hour, she would turn herself back in. The teacher was still at home, but this time with her kid. She opened the voicemail an hour after it was sent. The fourth voicemail came only a day later. It was windy. It was the same as the original number, the one from the jail. Sam had all but given up on reaching him, but she still called him. She didn't know why. She told him all about how she was under contract to not tell the other women how she had escaped. She had hoped maybe this time he would respond. He didn't, but the teacher opened the voicemail, listened, and sighed. The fifth voicemail came 6 months later. The first frost of the year was starting to melt. The teacher had not expected to get another call from the woman. It was well into the school year, and the teacher was teaching her class. Sam had wanted to tell him how well she was doing in the psychiatric care at the jail. She was proud of all the work she had done. The teacher opened the voicemail when class was over and started a folder with all the voicemails. Enchanted by Taylor Swift was on in the background. The bridge came on. Please don't be in love with someone else. The teacher paused. The sixth voicemail came from a new number 3 months later. It was 40 degrees in April. Too cold. This time, Sam really thought he may give her a call back. She was getting a kidney transplant. She was dying. She knew her voice sounded weak. She thought that even if he did not believe the words that came from her mouth, he may believe the sound of her voice. She had hoped. Maybe that was foolish. The teacher dragged the file over to the folder. The seventh and most recent voicemail came a month later. She had made a full recovery. This time, though, she had fully given up on contacting him. The beep no longer represented rejection. It was just reality. The voicemail was short. The file was dragged. A few days later, this teacher got distracted by her students. She had put Taylor Swift on in the background. I Did Something Bad was playing. Shockingly, I was not one of the students who was being distracting. I was doing my biology homework. She pulled up the folder and showed the class the voicemails. All of them. The chorus of I Did Something Bad came on just before she hit play. They say I did something bad, but why'd it feel so good? The teacher hesitated for a second. She hit play. By the end, we know where she lived from the area codes and her first name. I was the one that set the next few events into motion. To everyone in this class, this woman was a secret to be uncovered. We wanted to know more about this Sam woman. So, I started by searching Sam, Wisconsin, arrest. That didn't lead me very far. I then got the idea to check the Plover Correctional Facility website. There was a search engine of all the people there. I plugged in Sam and one result popped up. A woman who was in her late 40s. She was white, and her wrinkled skin contrasted her store-bought bleached hair. Hair that looked like it had been singed by a fire, or a cigarette. She was in there for substance abuse after all. That is where I learned her last name. Baltying. I called the teacher to my desk and she came running. I had found her. I was the hero of the class. When I searched up her name, I found her public records, and there, her new phone number was listed. It matched the number from the latest voicemail. I had found her. I was met with the adoration of my class. I guess this is what it must be like to feel relevant. So I kept on searching. I uncovered around 4 of 5 other court cases, all of which involved substances, and most of which involved driving. Most of the time, she was drunk. Never for a moment did I think we were doing something bad. The only thought that came into my mind when I was searching was, she's an addict who did this to herself. She is a bad person. That is how I justified what we tried to do next. Because we had her number, the class decided that the teacher should call her. The teacher said that she does not want to contact her, but is also also not ready to say, I am not the person you think I am. She still wanted Sam in her life. I guess she is just as nosy as I. But we pushed and pushed and pushed. We wanted to know more about this woman. We wanted a story. The teacher said she would think about it over the weekend and maybe do it on Monday. The weekend passed. I walked to class, and here was a Google Doc on the smartboard with Sam's face staring right back at me. The same face I saw on the website. The teacher had told one of her other classes later that Friday, and that class had found out more about her. The teacher's solution was to compile all this new information into a Google Doc. I felt like I could see the judgment in her eyes. So there was the doc with a family tree and everything. There were pictures of her and her daughter. There were even a few paragraphs about her daughter. Her daughter was named Haley, and she was my age. I, in my excitement and nosiness, asked the teacher to share the doc with me. I hesitated for a second when I realized there were pictures of her family. Once she shared it, I never opened it even once. The teacher told us how a boy in the other class had found Haley's Snapchat and started messaging her. I flinched when I heard this. He started off by being a charming young man. They chatted for maybe half an hour. He got blocked after asking where she lived. I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave right away. I didn't know why. I searched up her daughter on the internet. I found her Instagram, which was non-interesting, and her TikTok. The first thing I saw on that account was a picture of her and her mom with the caption, "People do not understand what it is like to live with a family member who is struggling with addiction. I am tired of being mad at the world. All I want is my mama back." Her hair was blonde, which matched her mom's short, well-bleached hair. Who knows when Sam made the switch to store-bought? The half-smile slid off my face as I scrolled through her TikTok, which included a bunch of accounts of what was going on with her and her mom, her dad who had left, her own struggle with a nicotine/vaping addiction. Somewhere along the way, Haley must have started dyeing her hair, too, but hers was black. Despite being the same age, we were so different. Where in my eyes there was light, her eyes were dead. Even when she smiled in her videos with a silver ring on her lower lip, she never looked truly happy. I left class that day feeling deflated. Could I be so foolish as to think this was okay? What we were doing was wrong. We were hurting somebody. The teacher had credited me with kicking this all off and said that without my discovery, we would have never figured out the situation. I was hailed as a hero. I wish I never was. Sam was never a bad person. She was just broken, and we had broken her more. Now all I can feel is sad. Sad for the daughter that was left. Sad for Sam for being forced to leave. Sad that we had pieced together so many personal details of Haley and Sam's life without their knowledge. Sad Sam believed she had been abandoned. Sad because I knew we had somehow made this a whole lot worse. I wish I could have done something for them, even become a friend to Haley. I didn't reach out. Haley had already gotten plenty of messages from the great state of Mike Hagan. The interview with the investigator was short. The teacher admitted to everything. When the investigator, Hannah, left, she thanked her for being so honest. She also said she would probably be fired. What did it matter? If those students had just kept their traps shut, then this would have never happened. The teacher had even planned out a whole project where the class would make connections between rural Wisconsin and Latin America. Both had a lot of drugs and corruption. It never occurred to her that was wrong. Couldn't be wrong. It was foolproof. Apparently, there were two loose ends. The two kids who had reported her. The teacher turned her phone on and scrolled through the voicemails. She thought about calling Sam. Her finger hovered over the call button. She didn't call her. She didn't know if calling her would make the situation worse. She also didn't want the voicemails to end. She enjoyed heaving Sam in her life. She sat back down. She was back in her spot. The spot Hannah Ellis was just in. She didn't know why she wanted to continue getting these voicemails. They had destroyed her life. Or maybe the students who reported it did. Sam had destroyed her life. It was not fair that she got all the blame. Hannah had told her the student got in no trouble, especially that girl who found Sam in the first place. God, this wasn't fair. A thought peeped in the back of her mind. If it was their fault, then they would be in trouble. She pushed it back down. The teacher stood up from the couch and stomped over to the kitchen in the next room. She turned on her Spotify and clicked all Taylor Swift songs. A song started playing. Anti-Hero started playing. I have this thing where I get older but never wiser. I should not be left to my own devices. They come with prices and vices. I end up in crisis. Something she couldn't place started to rise up through her body. She pushed it back down. It was their fault. It had to be. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. At tea time, everybody agrees. No, that can't be right. Can't be. This was not her fault. They did this to her. It is not her fault. It is not her. She is not the problem. It is Sam. It has to be. It has to be. Please, please. I'll stare directly in the sun, but never in the mirror. Shit. The next voicemail came a month later. School was out at that point. It was from the new number, but the voice on the other end was not Sam's. Somehow, after all this time, they still had the wrong number. The teacher could only assume it was Haley. They sounded similar. The teacher clicked on the voicemail. The voicemail was silent for a few seconds. A sniff. Hello. I was reaching out to tell you my mom died a few days ago from complications due to the transplant. My mom wanted me to tell you. I can't imagine why. You have ignored her for the past year. You are invited to the funeral whenever it happens. It will be a cremation, a sniff, and then her voice came out in a cracked whisper. Please, Dad, I miss you. Taylor Swift was still in the kitchen, her voice drifting through the open door. The teacher didn't even realize. And if I'm on fire, you'll be made of ashes too. The teacher fell to the ground as her mistakes lit her on fire. You wear the same jewels as I gave you as you bury me. Sam had given her something special, albeit by accident, something that would always live on with her. Even on my worst day, did I deserve, babe, all the hell you gave me? And suddenly, the rain started. I catfished my mom's lover. A few months after Dad's stroke in late 2022, Mom, who's always been so strong, started acting weird. The long hours at her new job were one thing, but the late nights, the hushed phone calls, the sudden angry outbursts, something was up. My gut feeling told me something was wrong, and my gut's usually right. So I started digging. It wasn't hard, really. A few quick searches online, and bam, I had his name. His Facebook, picture perfect. Smiling wife, 3 cute kids, the whole devoted family act. The oldest girl looked about 10. The irony? It was sickening. Okay, so what I did was probably crazy, impulsive, maybe even a little twisted. I made a fake Facebook profile using pictures of this gorgeous woman. A model, I think her pics were super professional. Looked like she was in her mid-20s. I picked her carefully, someone he wouldn't suspect. Added him as a friend and waited. 5 hours later, ping, friend request accepted. The initial exchange was casual. Hey, I typed, trying to sound like the woman whose identity I was borrowing. His reply was immediate. Hey there, you're gorgeous. And so it began. Weeks bled into each other, filled with flirtatious banter, late-night messages, and eventually voice calls. I kept the conversations light, avoiding anything that might reveal my true identity or intentions. He was totally into me, his messages getting way more flirty. He kept trying to get me on a video call, but I totally dodged him. I was like, sorry, my internet's crap, or work's been crazy, whatever. Meanwhile, Mom changed. Her phone, usually ringing off the hook, went quiet. Mom was totally different. Like, the happy mom I knew? Gone. Replaced by this, super moody person who also cried a lot for no reason. It was totally weird. Yeah, I knew then. Things were cooling down with that guy. The thrill was wearing off. So I pushed it, Started flirting with him a little more. Then, my chance. One night, Mom ran to the bathroom, leaving her phone unlocked on the counter. One look at the screen, and there it was, a crazy fight between her and that guy. His wife had found out. He was begging for a breakup. He said his wife had caught them. That's when I knew. It was perfect, almost too perfect. I kept playing along for a few more weeks, just flirting with him. Then, one day, boom, He says he's in love with me and wants to leave his wife for me. That's when I blocked him. LOL. I'm claustrophobic and my friends/family decided to prank me. So, I'm claustrophobic. Not like, oh, I don't like elevators, or haha, quirky fun fact. Claustrophobic. I mean, real claustrophobic. I can't even be under a blanket without feeling like I'm being smothered by the ghost of every bad decision I made. Everyone in my life knows this. My friends, my family, and my boyfriend. So for my birthday, they decided to prank me. And not just like a little jump scare or fake spider thing. No, these psychos planned to kidnap me. They rented a storage unit, a 5x5 steel box, no windows, no ventilation, just me, a cake, and 30 helium balloons. Their plan? Blindfold me, tie my hands gently, and shove me into the back of an SUV so they could take me to a surprise party. Inside it while they all yell surprise. From the outside like I'm a contestant on Claustrophobia. Extreme edition, you know, for fun. They even put a speaker inside to play looped breathing sounds. Not mine, just heavy, anonymous breathing. But my boyfriend, bless his deranged little heart, found out. And oh, he didn't just stop the prank. No. He outpranked them and went full supervillain. The night before the big day, he breaks into each of their houses. Don't ask how, I've stopped asking. And wraps their toilets shut with industrial-grade plastic wrap. Under the seats. You figure it out. He even replaced all their shampoo with glue. Then, he sets their smart speakers to blast coffin creaking sounds every time someone closes a door. And the cherry on top. He shows up to the fake party location early at 3 a.m. and replaces all the helium in the balloons with sulfur hexafluoride. You know, the gas that makes your voice deep and horrifying? Yeah. Now all their squeaky birthday messages sounded like Satan reading a bedtime story. Then, while they stood there, confused and already slightly on edge, he triggered the final touch. Every single one of their cars, somehow, was filled floor to ceiling with packing peanuts. You couldn't open a door without drowning in static-charged white fluff. One guy screamed so hard he pulled a hamstring. My aunt peed herself. And me? Well, I got a text from him afterward that just said, I took care of it. Happy birthday. It was all so crazy. Needless to say, he's not my boyfriend anymore. The biscuit thief. So, picture this. I'm sat in the waiting room at therapy, early as usual because I have anxiety and being on time is a personal attack. There's a little table in the middle with leaflets, puzzle books, and, crucially, a communal biscuit tin. Big mistake. Huge. I'm trying to mind my own business, flipping through a brochure titled, Your Emotions Are Valid. Even when you want to scream into a pillow, when I spot a custard cream in the tin. Not just any custard cream. This one's on top, golden, unbroken, practically winking at me. It's destiny. I reach for it just as the door opens and this older woman walks in. She's like someone's nan, but the kind that could probably take you in a fight and win. She sits down opposite me, nods politely, then looks straight at the biscuit tin. Now I don't want to say she growled, but the energy shifted. I break eye contact and retreat into my brochure, pretending I'm deeply moved by a paragraph about radical acceptance. Out of the corner of my eye, I see her hand reach into the tin, and she takes my custard cream. I freeze. Was this a test? Was she the therapist? Is this some kind of exposure exercise? Learning to tolerate injustice via digestive-based betrayal? I glance up. She's already halfway through the biscuit and looking smug. Panic. I take a rich tea. A rich tea. That's not even a biscuit. That's just a cardboard circle pretending it has value. Therapist calls us in. Guess who's in my group? Biscuit thief Brenda. She plops down next to me, still chewing the final crumbs of my emotional support snack. We're going around doing introductions, and she goes, Hi, I'm Brenda. I'm working on my anger issues. Of course you are, Brenda. Now every week we sit next to each other like nothing happened. I'm practically doing exposure therapy via bourbons. But the thing is, every time she takes a biscuit now, she glances at me first, like we've got an unspoken understanding. She steals the biscuits. I forgive her, And that, according to DBT, is progress. The visitor. I never should have said yes, but when Mark asked me to house sit, I figured I owed him. He was flying out to Denver for work, said it would only be a week, and I could crash at his place, watch some Netflix, drink his beer, water his plants. Easy. The first 2 nights were exactly that. Easy. On the third, I found a note taped to the front door. It said, "I know you're not him, but I'll make it work."
No signature.
No return address. Just that. I stared at it too long. Long enough for the hallway light to flicker off behind me. Long enough to feel watched. I crumpled the note and shoved it in the trash. I locked the door, triple-checked the windows, and tried to sleep. That was a mistake. At 2:13 a.m., I woke up gasping. The kind of panic that claws at your lungs before you're even sure why. I sat up on the couch, sweating, and then heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow taps at the front door. I didn't move. Knock, knock, knock. I crept toward the peephole. No one was there. I checked the Ring camera. Nothing. Just a still image of the empty porch. The knock stopped. I didn't sleep again. Mark didn't answer my call the next day. Probably busy, I told myself. Meetings, flights, whatever. I didn't mention the note. Or the knocking. I didn't want to sound insane. I tried to distract myself. Read. Watched a movie. Made dinner. Kept every light on in the house like that would help. At 8:47 p.m., I got a second note. It slid under the door like it had been waiting for the right moment. "You breathe differently than him, but that's okay. I've adapted before." I opened the door fast, trying to catch someone. Anyone. Nothing. The porch light buzzed faintly. The street was empty. I called the cops. They came, looked around, took the notes, said it was probably a prank. Neighborhood kids or something. Told me to keep my phone on, lock the doors. I didn't tell them about the camera not working. Didn't tell them that I felt like the house was breathing when I wasn't looking. The 4th night, I slept with a kitchen knife. It didn't help. I woke up again, not from a sound, but from the quiet. You don't realize how loud a house is until it's completely silent. No hum of the fridge. No buzz from the lights.
No ticking clock.
I turned over on the couch and screamed. There was a man standing at the edge of the room, pale, barefoot, wearing a long brown coat. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. I blinked, and he was gone. No open door, no sound, just the deep, cloying scent of soil. I started digging, metaphorically at first. I needed to know who Mark had pissed off, who wanted him hurt, who was willing to settle for me instead. I found nothing. No old enemies, no crazy exes, no strange behavior. Mark was boring, stable, kind. So why was I the one getting haunted? That's when it hit me. I called him again. This time he picked up. "Dude," I said, "has this happened before?" Silence. Then, "You got a note?" My blood ran cold. "You knew. I didn't think he'd come back. Not this fast." "Who is he?" A long breath. "I don't know. I never saw his face. But when I moved into that house last year, I found a journal. Hidden in the vents. It was full of sketches. Eyes, dozens of them, watching me. I burned it. And he left notes. Knocked. Came inside once. Just stood there. Then one day he stopped. Why didn't you tell me? I thought it was over. That night, the locks didn't matter. I woke up to the smell of earth again. I didn't open my eyes. Not at first. I just lay there, knife under my pillow, heart pounding in my ears. And then I felt it. Presence. Heavy. Intent. I opened my eyes. He was there again. Closer this time. I could see his face or lack of one. It was like someone had smoothed clay over his features. No eyes. No mouth. Just skin. Pale and tight. But I knew he was looking at me. Not him, he said without speaking. But he'll do. He lifted a hand. I tried to scream. The room went black. I woke up in the morning, knife still under the pillow. Alone. Everything looked normal. Lights on. Fridge humming.
No footprints.
No sign of forced entry, except for the note on the nightstand. Better fit than I thought. You'll last longer. I left that day. Didn't pack. Didn't call Mark. I just walked out and never went back. But sometimes, when I lie awake at night, lights on, door locked, I feel it. That smell. That silence. And I know he's still watching. Because I was never just house-sitting. I was being replaced. I accidentally caught my professor and classmate in a romantic relationship. To make it clear, I did not want to find this out. Anyways, we are all adults, so it's okay, IG, although I still find it weird because me and my classmate are both freshmen and the professor, I believe, was mid-30s. During the middle of spring semester, I started going to school way earlier to make sure I'm ahead because things pick up fast, right? And I would always notice my classmate and that professor talking literally every time I saw them. Again, no big deal because it was mid-semester and I thought she was doing same shit I was. Until one day she kept rubbing his arm over and over again and I started getting suspicious, loudly crying face. Here's where I knew for sure though. One day when class was starting, she sat next to me by chance, I guess, because I don't talk to her, and then I hear a ting like you get when you get a text message. Now I'm sorry to say, but I'm a noisy MF. I took a quick glance because it displayed on her computer and it said, Professor. His name. He never displayed his number or gave it out, and then she opened it and it was like full-blown conversations. Obviously, I did read them. This was the last class of the day, so when it ended we all walked out, but her and the professors went a different direction. The professors park in a different lot, obviously. So another week goes by and I got there super early to focus on other class assignment and saw them kiss when I opened the door and they were both inside the classroom. Thank fucking God they did see me. I obviously don't care because we are adults, but I wanted to make Reddit post of this. Birdman, I was talking with my uncle on the couch when there was TV on. I was at his house and had already been there for nearly an hour. We live in the woods, a little out from the nearest neighborhood. My grandma came into the room and said, "Are you ready to eat?" I jumped up and said, "Yeah." My Italian grandmother had the best pizza, so I ate that. My grandpa, grandma, and I were sitting at the table talking about family drama. And then a sound interrupted us. A tap. I looked out the window and laughed it away, and then we continued talking. Following dinner, grandma and grandpa rose. I stood along with them and spoke. "That was good, Ma," grandma replied. "Why, thanks, honey." We piled up our plates and grandma and grandpa added, "We're going to bed. See you tomorrow." I said, "Okay, love you, good night." I sat down on the couch, in front of the TV, just waiting to get sleepy. Something I haven't said is that there is this big window on the side of the house that looks into the dark woods. I heard the second knock. I glanced over and I thought I saw a bird, but its beak was bigger than normal, and it seemed to have a torso. A human torso, but only for a moment did I see it. Perhaps I was hallucinating. I glanced again. Nothing. Just a bird. But then I noticed a dark creature looking in through the window. It opened its huge beak and clicked. Like a crow. I felt nauseous. I'm imagining things. Maybe it was just really close. Then I glared at it. It was like a human with crow legs, a crow head, and what looked like wings under its arms. The rest looked human. I cowered behind the couch, peering out. It clicked once more, and then crows burst out of the sky, some kind of avian deity. I crept out of view into the kitchen. I couldn't see it any longer. I sat there for a second, then heard another click, this time by the window. I stood up and ran over to my bag and grabbed my airsoft rifle, just in case. Then I crept to my grandparents' room. I stood up and told my grandpa what had happened. He stood up and said, "Ugh, you kids see things." We left the room. He looked out the window and said, "Let's go, boy." I have no room in my heart to forgive my stepdad. The title is how it sounds. I hate that man so much. If you were to take hate and compare it to the size of Jupiter, it would be very inaccurate to how big my hatred for this man is. He's a bully who used fear-mongering to get me to submit, makes jokes at my expense and doesn't care that they make me uncomfortable, has had a couple of instances that bordered on abuse towards me, and now he's trying to be nice by getting me what I want to eat and sometimes giving me a treat from someplace he went to during his job. Fuck anyone who defends his behavior because in my eyes, he's an atrocious excuse for a dad when it comes to being there. He makes jokes about me that are either annoying or very uncomfortable. One time he made a joke about me lying about going to a friend's house and that I instead went to some pedophiles to give them a blowjob. There's also the time where after I got out of the special ed program, he said that I conned my teachers into thinking I'm not retarded anymore. Now TBH, that other joke was more annoying than anything. Being called retarded for me is no different from being called stupid or dumb. He knows I hate when he does it, but does it anyway to prepare me for the real world. He knows it doesn't work, but decides to keep doing it. I ask him why he did it before, and he smiled, asking me, "Did you seriously think you were going to get an answer?" So he's not a funny dad, which is something he can't seem to accept. He had 2 instances where what he did to me was very close to be considering actual abuse. The first one was locking me out of the apartments we lived at on a hot summer day. I was 8 to 9 and we got back from a gas station to our apartment. There was a paper wasp in its nest on the doorframe. I cowered in fear of getting stung, and my mom's husband noticed this and decided to keep me outside where he locked the door. I had to wait a while for mom to come home while I was outside hot and afraid. When I reminded mom about this years later, all she could say was, "I'm sorry that happened to you." But now fast forward to 1 month back. We had mice out in the open in the kitchen. I am also afraid of house mice. I stayed in the living room for a while until mom suggested I get the mouse trap and I be the one to set the trap. I didn't know how to do that and she didn't either. Instead of looking it up on YouTube, I didn't look it up because my phone was dying. She takes it to her husband and he shows her how to do it. When he finishes, he looks at me deviously and throws it at me. The mouse trap goes off, but I wasn't harmed. I yelled at him as he smiles at me. Mom clearly wasn't paying attention and makes the dumbass move of taking it to him again. He sets it up, then throws it at me again. I again was unharmed, but this time I screamed "fuck you" as he smiles even harder at me. Even mom asks him if that was necessary. I tell her he does it because I can't do anything back. He then yells at me saying he doesn't want to be the one to set the trap. So she sets the trap and puts it in our bathroom. 3, he's a bigoted piece of shit as well. He calls me the hard R N-word occasionally, calls me derogatory terms for gay men, and even called me a faggot one time. And he is very obsessive with knowing if a trans person is trans, to which I lie just so he genders them correctly and so he would shut the fuck up. Hell, I'm trans myself, and he threatened to send me to a military school because of it. He only found out after I came out to mom and she told him. He then wrote a military school name, phone number, day and time on our fridge whiteboard, which made me super anxious. Mom said that it was an empty threat and that he wrote that to comfort her about me being trans. Whenever I tell people about this story, they seem to believe that mom was just appeasing him for my safety and that he wrote that to make himself happy. Turns out they were right, as I later find out mom isn't very happy with him, and she doesn't know how to get out of that mess because her husband doesn't listen to anyone but himself. So now I have even more hatred for him in this regard, knowing that. 4. He fucks with me by playing this don't flinch game by throwing his fist at me to get me to flinch. He has been doing this for as long as I remember him being in my life. He does it to get me to not flinch, but he's been doing it for years and hasn't caught on. Or maybe he has and just doesn't care. Well, one night I call him out on it and politely ask him to stop. He said, "Why would I do that?" I ask him, "Why do you do it in the first place?" Then mom chimes in and says that he does it to get me to not flinch anymore. Then I got vocal and said that he should know that it doesn't work because he has been doing it for years and should have caught on by then. At this point, I believe he does it because he likes it. He smiles hard, probably laughing his ass off inside. Deny it all you want. You know I'm right. And he brushes it off as whatever and says that I would die in 15 seconds if I time traveled to the Middle Ages and called me a weak-ass bitch. Whatever, you narcissistic asshole. This man clearly has established that I'm just a punching bag for him and a laughingstock. He can try to be nice to me now all he wants, but that won't undo all the shit he's done before. I hate that maggot, and I hope he has a slow death in the end of his life. My mom married him thinking he would be a better father than that deadbeat neo-Nazi I call my donor. I want a good father figure in my life, but he isn't even that at all. The only reason I call him dad still is because 1, I'm afraid of what could happen if I stop, and 2, I don't want to remind my mom that she failed me. Fuck him. Parents, if your spouse is being an ass to your child, call them out on it. If they don't listen, that marriage was never meant to be. And one more thing for you parents, if your kid comes out as trans, just love them and accept them for who they are. You shouldn't be a parent if you won't do that. So please don't be a dick to your kids like this asshole was to me. Girl of my dreams. Okay, I am really bored, it's almost 2300 hours, and I have nothing to do, so I would just make a post. I am 15 years old and have been going crazy over this one girl. I saw her in school today and my stomach started hurting, my heart was beating like crazy, and I felt so happy for no reason, and honestly when I have to go home, or when she's not in, I hate it so much. I hate being away from her for some reason. But the thing is, I am really ugly broke and have no confidence, and I know I'll never get her man. She is so pretty, curly hair, clear skin, almond eyes, she glows in the sun, and even looks good on her bad days. I just can't. I want to be friends with her, but she just doesn't talk to me, she doesn't even look at me, but I try my very best every day to get her attention, make her laugh, talk to her, get close, anything, but nothing works, and it is killing me. I am so deeply in love, and it has been 3 years. It stings whenever other people make her laugh, flirt, etc. I just wish I could talk to her. Not only that, we used to have a bond a year ago, but things changed. We stopped talking and stopped being friends, kind of, and I can't get over her. I have no one to talk to, no one to turn to, no one except God. He has seen me in my good and bad times. And at school I am known as the class clown, or guy that is supposed to be really funny all of the time, but little does everyone know I am making everyone laugh, making their day, but she doesn't laugh, and no one knows how lonely I am and depressed I am. I am so lonely I talk to myself and make jokes, and I think I have a mental illness. I honestly don't know, but yeah. Thanks for reading. I did a photo shoot, but the model insisted on editing photos herself. A couple of years ago, I worked as a photographer. I did pretty well and gained experience working with various brands in my area. At the time, I lived in Eastern Europe. I won't go into too much detail to avoid being too specific. A new clothing brand owner, let's call her Amy, contacted me to set up a photo shoot for her social media and online store. On the arranged day, we met at the studio. Amy's specific request was to showcase how the dresses looked on a size L/XL model. The brand's target audience was Kavya women, and they didn't offer XS/S sizes at all. So the focus needed to be entirely on the clothes. When the model, let's call her Kate, arrived, the first thing I noticed was her extremely heavy makeup. It was bright and dramatic, and her hair was styled like she was going to a red carpet event. This was surprising because she had been told not to wear too much makeup. The focus was supposed to be on the outfit, not her face. Despite that, we started the photo shoot, which actually went fairly well, even though it lasted around 4 hours. The only real issue was Kate's attitude. She kept telling me how to take the photos and acted as though she was the one who hired me. I tried to ignore her and kept communicating directly with Amy, showing her the photos throughout the shoot. Amy was professional. She didn't say much, but she knew what she wanted and trusted me to handle everything. After the shoot, Kate asked for my number so she could get copies of the photos. A few days later, she reached out and begged me to send her the pictures first, saying, "I'm very insecure about my appearance and need to see what I look like before they post anything." Honestly, I didn't have to do that. We were both hired to do a job. She did hers, got paid, and that should have been the end of it. I wasn't even sure I was allowed to send her the photos. But she was so persistent, and I'm not great at saying no, so I agreed. 2 weeks later, I sent her the edited photos. I mostly worked on the lighting, background, and minor clothing details. Her face already looked great thanks to professional makeup, and retouching facial features wasn't part of my job. After I sent her the photos, she contacted me again, this time asking me not to send them to Amy. I was speechless. That was literally what I was hired to do. She said she looked too fat and asked me to make her smaller. I explained that I couldn't do that. The whole point of the shoot was to show how the clothes fit L/XL models. She tried to manipulate me, saying that if I were a real professional, I'd be able to make any model look good. Then she told me I wasn't allowed to share her photos with anyone and insisted she would send them to Amy herself. It was late, so I decided to wait until morning to explain everything to Amy. But when I woke up, I already had several notifications from her. She had sent me a couple of pictures and asked, "What is this?" I was furious. You should have seen what Kate did. She had photoshopped herself down to a size S, which made the dresses look completely ridiculous and unnatural. On top of that, she'd slapped on insane face app filters that made her look almost AI generated. The worst part? Kate told Amy that I had sent her those photos first, and that she was just passing them along early because she was excited to share them. I immediately explained everything to Amy and sent her the actual edited versions. Amy was relieved and furious. She said Kate was going on her blacklist and that she'd never recommend her to any colleagues. She went ahead and posted my edited versions on their website, since the model had already been paid and they didn't need her permission to publish the images. Later on, Kate used her heavily edited versions for her own social media. When she found out I had sent my versions to Amy, she blocked me and called me unprofessional. A year later, I'd become more recognized and started getting invited to various events as a photographer. Well-known models in the area began tagging me on Instagram. Out of nowhere, Kate DM'd me, "Hey, remember me? How are you? Want to take some photos of me for your portfolio? I mean, for free, of course. We've worked together before, so I won't charge you anything." When drinking too much get you a cheap house. Long story short, I moved to rural France in summer 2022 for an internship on an organic farm. After the 6-month internship, I didn't feel like going home, so I asked the boss if I could stay longer in the trailer. He was cool with it since I knew how the work is done, and I didn't ask for any money. I just work 14 a week for food and housing and make money on the side with welding and side job. After a year, I started looking for a house, and the friends I make during that year helped me looking for a house since there is so many inhabited house in the area. The most difficult part is finding the owner and getting them to sell. After 6 months looking, I still didn't found anything and was a little disappointed. One day during one side job for a friend, he told me he found a little house not too far from the village and inhabited. We got a look around since it was open, no fucking door, and I like what I saw. Good roof, perfect space, not too big but not too small, a kitchen, a big main room with 2 rooms upstairs and a barn connected to the house. The guy that found it told me that I should ask one of the local farmer to know if they knew the owner. 2 days later, we are at a house party and one farmer that became a very good friend of mine was at the party, and I asked him if he knew the place and the owner. We were pretty drunk, already surrounded by wine bottle, whiskey, and food. That's the moment the guy just said to me, "Yes, I know that place. It belongs to me." We didn't even try to negotiate. He told me, "That's not worth much and we don't use it, and there is some work to do on it, so it's almost worthless to us." I just said, "Let's go for 20,000 euro and I pay for the land registry." The dude was cool with it and I just paid the final bill for the land registry, and now I have to wait 2 months for local government to accept the transformation of agricultural land into living space. That will not be a problem since it is less than 1 acre. I'll keep you updated when things start moving forward. Fun fact, I'm buying a house, but I still don't have a driver license. Life is weird. My father saved me from my crazy mother, and now she thinks I owe her everything. For a little bit of context, I'm an only child and I, 19M, didn't even meet my biological father, 65M, until the age of 11. My mother, 55F, lied to me from a very young age and told me that he was a horrible person that abandoned her when she got pregnant and that he wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. Turns out that wasn't true at all. I have no idea why she lied other than the fact that she absolutely despises him for whatever reason. My dad ended up finding out about me through my grandmother, mom's side, and tracked me down. Even after we met, I was able to have much of a relationship with him because my mom would tell me that he didn't actually care about me and he was only pretending to be a good dad now. My mom has a long history of alcohol abuse, and I never grew up having much due to her inability to hold down a job. We've often couch surfed and bounced from place to place. We also stayed with my grandmother off and on, but my mom ended up ditching that idea when my grandmother threatened to call CPS on her due to her heavy drinking. I was around 9 or 10 at the time. Halfway through my sophomore year of high school, my mom ended up going to rehab and my dad agreed to take me in until she got back on her feet. It ended up being a much more long-term thing than it was supposed to be. Clearly, I was not number 1 on her priority list. She continued to relapse and be in out of jail, OWI charges, and rehab for the next 4 years until she finally cleaned up her act. She's now been sober for a year. Even though things started out pretty awkward, my dad and I have developed a decent relationship, and he's done everything in his power to support me throughout the years. He's been helping me with my tuition, bought me a car, etc. I've been a bit spoiled, I know, but I've made sure to express to him on many occasions how incredibly grateful I really am for everything he's generously gifted me. Not to mention he's also provided me with a safe, stable environment, which is something I, unfortunately, never really had growing up. He's helped me out and done so much all for a kid he barely even knew in the beginning. By the way, I do have a job and don't just mooch off of him for everything. At least I try not to. I've still been in contact with my mom, and she's insisted on me cutting contact with my dad and moving back in with her now that she has her own apartment, to which I've declined multiple times now. She keeps trying to convince me that my dad has completely brainwashed me and that it's not in my best interest to continue to be around him. She also constantly asks me for money and tells me that I owe it to her for all the years of hell that apparently I put her through. Another excuse she loves to use is that she was the one who raised me for 15 years, while my dad just sat back and did nothing. Not sure how that makes sense considering he didn't even know I existed. But okay. Yes, I have given her money on a few occasions because I do still love my mom and don't want to see her in a shitty situation. I do alright for myself with my job considering I still live at home and my expenses are minimal, but I'm still very much dependent on my dad for most things. But I've still done what I can to help. That, and she gets heated, angry, and starts name-calling if I ever dare to tell her no. She oftentimes likes to tell me that I'll never amount to anything and I'm just going to become a loser just like my dad. My dad is a successful person and I plan to become the same. I was valedictorian and am currently going to school to become a physical therapist. Not that it matters, I just don't get how that makes me a loser. This is already way too damn long and I thank everyone who made it to the end. But that's pretty much my story. Like I said, I still love my mother dearly. But I'm at a point now where I have no idea what to do or how to help her. I work on cargo ships. A scarred whale began acting erratically around us. We thought it was the danger. We were wrong. So wrong. I work on cargo ships, long hauls across the empty stretches of ocean. It's usually monotonous, the endless blue, the thrum of the engines, the routine. But this last trip was different. It started about 10 days out from port, somewhere in the Pacific. I was on a late watch, just me and the stars and the hiss of the bow cutting through the water. That's when I first saw it. A disturbance in the dark water off the port side, too large to be dolphins, too deliberate for a random wave. Then, a plume of mist shot up, illuminated briefly by the deck lights. A whale, not unheard of, but this one was big, really big, and it was close. The next morning, it was still there, keeping pace with us. A few of the other guys spotted it. Our bosun, a weathered old hand on the sea, squinted at it through his binoculars. "Humpback, by the looks of it," he grunted. "Big fella. Lost his pod, maybe. But there was something off about it. It wasn't just its size, though it was easily one of the largest I'd ever seen, rivaling the length of some of our smaller tenders. It was its back. It was a roadmap of scars. Not just the usual nicks and scrapes you see from barnacles or minor tussles. These were huge, gouged-out marks, some pale and old, others a more recent angry pink. Long, tearing slashes and circular, crater-like depressions. It looked like it had been through a war. And it was alone. Whales, especially humpbacks, are often social. This one was a solitary giant, a scarred sentinel in the vast, empty ocean. And it was following us, not just swimming in the same general direction, but actively shadowing our ship. If we adjusted course, it adjusted too, maintaining its position a few hundred yards off our port side. This went on for the rest of the day. Some of the crew found it a novelty, a bit of wildlife to break the tedium. I just found it unsettling. There was an intelligence in the way it moved, in the occasional roll that brought a massive, dark eye to the surface, seemingly looking right at us. The second day was the same. The whale was our constant companion. The novelty had worn off for most. Now it was just there, a silent, scarred presence. I spent a lot of my off hours watching it. There was a weird sort of gravity to it. I couldn't shake the feeling that its presence meant something, though I couldn't imagine what. The scars on its back fascinated and repulsed me. What could do that to something so immense? A propeller from a massive ship? An orca attack, but on a scale I'd never heard of? Then, late on the second day of its appearance, something else happened. Our ship started to lose speed. Not drastically at first, just a subtle change in the engine's rhythm, a slight decrease in the vibration underfoot. The chief engineer, a perpetually stressed man, was down in the engine room for hours. Word came up that there was some kind of issue with one of the propeller shafts, or maybe a fuel line clog. Nothing critical, they said, but we'd be running at reduced speed for a while, at least until they could isolate the problem. That's when the whale's behavior changed. It was dusk. The ocean was turning that deep, bruised purple it gets before full night. I was leaning on the rail, watching it. The ship was noticeably slower now, the wake less pronounced. Suddenly, the whale surged forward, closing the distance between us with alarming speed. It dove, then resurfaced right beside the hull, maybe 20 yards out. And then it hit us. The sound was like a muffled explosion, a deep, resonant thump that vibrated through the entire vessel. Metal groaned. I stumbled, grabbing the rail. On the bridge, I heard someone shout. The whale surfaced again, its scarred back glistening. And then, with a deliberate, powerful thrust of its tail, it slammed its massive body into our hull again. Thump. This time, alarms started blaring. What in the hell? Someone yelled from the deck below. The captain was on the wing of the bridge, her voice cutting through the sudden chaos. All hands report. What was that? The whale hit us a third time. This wasn't a curious nudge. This was an attack. It was ramming us. The impacts were heavy enough to make you think it could actually breach the hull if it hit a weak spot. Panic started to set in. A creature that size, actively hostile. We were a steel ship, sure, but the ocean is a big place, and out here, you're very much on your own. A few of the guys, deckhands mostly, grabbed gaff hooks and whatever heavy tools they could find, rushing to the side, yelling, trying to scare it off. The bosun appeared with a flare gun, firing a bright red star over its head. The whale just ignored it, preparing for another run. Get the rifles, someone shouted. I think it was the second mate. We need to drive it off. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. Shooting it? A whale? It felt monstrously wrong, but it was also ramming a multi-ton steel vessel, and that was just insane. Could cripple us, or worse, damage itself fatally on our hull. Before anyone could get a clear shot, as a group of crew members gathered with rifles on the deck, the whale suddenly dove. Deep, it vanished into the darkening water as if it had never been there. The immediate assumption was that the show of force, the men lining the rail, had scared it off. We waited, tense, for a long 5 minutes. Nothing. The ship continued its slow, laborious crawl through the water. The captain ordered damage assessments. Miraculously, apart from some scraped paint and a few dented plates above the waterline, our ship seemed okay. But the mood was grim. What if it came back? Why would a whale do that? Rabies? Some weird sickness? It's the slowdown, the veteran sailor said, his voice low, as he stood beside me later, staring out at the black water. Animals can sense weakness. Ships wounded, moving slow. Maybe it thinks we're easy prey or dying. Prey? I asked. It's a baleen whale, isn't it? It eats krill. The veteran sailor just shrugged, his weathered face unreadable in the dim deck lights. Nature's a strange thing, kid. Out here, anything's possible. The engine problems persisted. We were making maybe half our usual speed. Every creak of the ship, every unusual slap of a wave against the hull, had us jumping. The whale didn't reappear for the rest of the night, or so we thought. My watch came around again in the dead of night, the hours between 2 and 4 a.m. The deck was mostly deserted. The sea was calm, black glass under a star-dusted sky. I was trying to stay alert, scanning the water, my nerves still frayed. And then I saw it, a faint ripple, then the gleam of a wet back, much closer this time. It was the whale. It had returned, but only when the deck was quiet, when I was for all intents and purposes, alone. My heart hammered. I reached for my radio, ready to call it in. But then it did something that made me pause. It didn't charge. It just swam parallel to us, very close, its massive body a dark shadow in the water. It let out a long, low moan, a sound that seemed to vibrate in my bones more than I heard it with my ears. It was an incredibly mournful, almost pained sound. Then it slowly, deliberately bumped against the hull. Not a slam, not an attack. A bump, like a colossal cat rubbing against your leg. Thump, then another thump. It was the strangest thing. It was looking right at me. I swear it. One huge, dark eye, visible as it rolled slightly. It seemed, I don't know, desperate? It kept bumping the ship, always on the port side where I stood. Always these strange, almost gentle impacts. I didn't call it in. I just watched. This wasn't the aggressive creature from before. This was something else. Continued this for nearly an hour. The moment I saw another crew member, a sleepy-looking engineer on his way to the galley, emerge onto the deck further aft. The whale sank silently beneath the waves and was gone. It was as if it only wanted me to see it, to witness this bizarre, pleading behavior. The next day, the engineers were still wrestling with the engines. We were still slow, and the whale kept up its strange pattern. During the day, if a crowd was on deck, it stayed away, or if it did approach and men rushed to the rails with shouts or weapons, it would dive and disappear. But if I was alone on deck, or if it was just me and maybe one other person who wasn't paying attention to the water, it would come close. It would start the bumping. Not hard, not damaging, but persistent. Thump, thump, thump. It was eerie. It felt like it was trying to communicate something. The other crew were mostly convinced it was mad, or that the ship's vibrations, altered by the engine trouble, were agitating it. The talk of shooting it became more serious. The captain was hesitant, thankfully. International maritime laws about protected species, but also, I think, a sailor's reluctance to harm such a creature unless absolutely necessary. Still, rifles were kept ready. I started to feel a strange connection to it. Those scars, that mournful sound it made when it was just me, it didn't feel like aggression. It felt like a warning, or a plea. But for what? I'd stare at its scarred back and wonder again what could inflict such wounds. The gashes looked like they were made by something with immense claws, or teeth that weren't like a shark's. The circular marks were even weirder, almost like suction cups, but grotesquely large, and with torn edges. The morning it all ended, I was on the dawn watch. The sky was just beginning to lighten in the east, a pale gray smear. The sea was flat, oily. We were still crawling. The whale was there, off the port side, as usual. It had been quiet for the last few hours, just keeping pace. I felt a profound weariness. 3 days of this. 3 days of the ship being crippled. 3 days of this scarred giant shadowing us. Its intentions a terrifying enigma. I remember sipping lukewarm coffee, staring out at the horizon, when I saw the whale react. It suddenly arched its back, its massive tail lifting high out of the water before it brought it down with a tremendous slap. The sound cracked across the quiet morning like a gunshot. Then it dove, a panicked, desperate dive. Not the slow, deliberate submergence I was used to. It went straight down, leaving a swirling vortex on the surface. What the hell now? I muttered, gripping the rail. My eyes scanned the water where it had disappeared, and then I saw it. Further back, maybe half a mile behind us, something else was on the surface. At first, it was just a disturbance, a dark shape in the gray water. But it was moving fast, incredibly fast, closing the distance to where the whale had been. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't any whale I'd ever seen. As it got closer, still mostly submerged, I could see its back. It was long, dark, and glistening, but it wasn't smooth like a whale's. It had ridges and things sticking out of it. 2 of them on either side of its spine, arcing up and then back. They weren't fins, not like a shark's dorsal fin or a whale's flippers. They looked like wings, leathery, membranous wings, like a bat's, but colossal, and with no feathers, just bare, dark flesh stretched over a bony framework. They weren't flapping. They were held semi-furled against its back, cutting through the water like grotesque sails. The thing was slicing through the ocean at a speed that made our struggling cargo ship look stationary. A cold dread, so absolute it was almost paralyzing, seized me. This was what the whale was running from. This was the source of its scars. The winged thing reached the spot where our whale had dived. It didn't slow. It just tilted and slipped beneath the surface without a splash, as if the ocean were a veil it simply passed through. For a minute, nothing. The sea was calm again, deceptively so. I was shaking, my coffee cup clattering against the saucer I'd left on the railing. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. Flesh wings? In the ocean. Then the water began to change color. Slowly at first, then with horrifying speed. A bloom of red spread outwards from the spot where they'd both gone down. A slick, dark, crimson stain on the gray morning sea. It grew wider and wider. The whale, our whale. I felt sick. A profound sense of horror and, strangely, loss. That scarred giant, with its mournful cries and strange, bumping pleas. It hadn't been trying to hurt us. It had been terrified. It had been trying to get our attention, trying to warn us, maybe even seeking refuge with the only other large thing in that empty stretch of ocean, our ship. And when we slowed down, when we became vulnerable, it must have known we were drawing its hunter closer. Or maybe it was trying to get us to move faster, to escape. The slamming, it was desperate. The blood slick was vast now, a hideous smear on the calm water. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. My crewmates were starting to stir, a few coming out on deck, drawn by the dawn. I heard someone ask, "What's that?" Oil spill. I didn't answer, couldn't. I was still staring at the bloody water, a good quarter-mile astern now as we slowly pulled away. And then, something broke the surface in the middle of it. It rose slowly, terribly. It wasn't the whale. First, a section of that ridged, dark back, then those hideous, furled wings of flesh, and then its head, or what passed for a head. There were no eyes that I could see, no discernible features, really, except for what was clearly its mouth. It was a hole, a vast, circular maw, big enough to swallow a small car, and it was lined, packed, with rows upon rows of needle-sharp, glistening teeth, some as long as my arm. They weren't arranged like a shark's, in neat rows. They were a chaotic forest of ivory daggers, pointing inwards. The flesh around this nightmare orifice was pale and rubbery, like something that had never seen the sun. It just was a vertical abyss of teeth, hovering above the blood-stained water. It wasn't looking at the ship, not in a general sense. It was higher out of the water than I would have thought possible for something of that bulk without any visible means of buoyancy beyond the slight unfurling of those terrible wings, which seemed to tread water with a slow, obscene power. It rotated, slowly, and then it stopped, and I knew, with a certainty that froze the marrow in my bones, that it was looking at me. There were no eyes. I will swear to that until the day I die. There was nothing on that featureless, toothed head that could be called an eye, but I felt its gaze, a cold, ancient, utterly alien regard. It wasn't curious. It wasn't even malevolent, not in a way I could understand. It was like being assessed by a butcher, a focused, chilling attention, right on me, standing there on the deck of our vessel. Time seemed to stop. The sounds of the ship, the distant chatter of the waking crew, faded away. It was just me and that thing, staring at each other across a widening expanse of bloody water. I could feel my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. Couldn't breathe. Then the chief engineer came up beside me, the same one who'd been battling our engine troubles. "God Almighty," he whispered, his face pale. "What in the name of all that's holy is that?" The spell broke. The thing didn't react to the chief. His focus, if that's what it was, remained on me for another second or two. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, it began to sink back beneath the waves, its toothed maw the last thing to disappear into the red. The captain was on the bridge wing, binoculars pressed to her eyes, her face a mask of disbelief and horror. Orders were shouted. "Full power. Get us out of here. Whatever you have to do, "Chief, give me everything you've got." Suddenly, the engine problem that had plagued us for days seemed less important. Miraculously, or perhaps spurred by the sheer terror of what we just witnessed, the engines roared to life, the ship shuddering as it picked up speed, faster than it had moved in days. No one spoke for a long time. We just stared back at the bloody patch of water, shrinking in our wake. The silence was heavier than any storm. The realization hit me fully then, like a physical blow. The wail, the scars, the way it only approached when I was alone, bumping the hull, moaning. It wasn't trying to hurt us. It was running. It was terrified. It was trying to tell us, trying to warn us. Maybe it even thought our large metal ship could offer some protection, or that we could help it. When we slowed down, we became a liability, a slow-moving target that might attract its pursuer. Its frantic slamming against the hull when the ship first slowed. It was trying to get us to move, to escape the fate it knew was coming for it. And it had singled me out for some reason. Maybe I was just the one on watch most often when it was desperate. Maybe it sensed. I don't know. I don't want to know. The rest of the voyage was a blur of hushed conversations, wide eyes, and constant, fearful glances at the ocean. We reported an unidentified aggressive marine phenomenon and the loss of a whale, but how do you even begin to describe what we saw? Who would believe it? The official log was sanitized. We made it to port. I signed off the ship as soon as we docked. I haven't been back to sea since. I don't think I ever can.